Hello everyone, Fred here. In this installment of TPP Dynamite, I'm going to be discussing my thoughts and feelings on the very high likelihood that James Gunn's new DCU will be rebooting the Shazam franchise and totally overhauling the cast from the two Zachary Levi films. First things first though, if you haven't already, let me encourage you to subscribe to my channel. I regularly post reviews of films, books, and movies on this channel. I'm also an author of adult and young adult mystery novels. To date, I've released 3 books: The Women in White, The Lethal List, and most recently, Textbook Murder. They're all on sale now, and there are purchase links in my video description below. With that in mind, and without further ado, I'm going to dig right into my topic for today. So I was prompted to make this video after planning and shooting my review of Shazam: Fury of the Gods several days ago. If you haven't seen that one, then definitely check it out. I wanted to talk a little more about my thoughts regarding the likelihood that Zachary Levi Shazam cast, that whole cast would be replaced and that whole franchise rebooted for James Gunn's DCU. But I didn't want to get too much into that during my review of the movie because that video was already long enough, and because I figured that discussing that whole thing would take too much away from my actually reviewing the movie. Also, before I go on further, I want to make clear that this video is meant as my discussion about the likelihood that James Gunn will tell a rebooted, totally new Shazam story with an entirely new cast for his DCU. Not the likelihood that James Gunn's DCU will include Zachary Levi's Shazam cast somewhere down the line in some sort of Elseworld story where it's established that their franchise is in a separate universe someplace. That's a completely different beast, a completely different discussion altogether. But with all of that established, I think it's highly likely that James Gunn will be rebooting the Zachary Levi Shazam franchise, replacing the cast and probably telling new Shazam stories that are more in line with the DCU. Of course, Zachary Levi's Shazam franchise is still quite fresh in the minds and hearts of fans now, so I wouldn't expect even a word about retooled Shazam stuff for probably between 5 and 10 years at the least. Zachary Levi, David F. Sandberg, James Gunn, and some other creatives behind the Shazam franchise have for months been double talking and playing both sides of the fence when asked questions about if the Shazam franchise will be rebooted for the DCU. And that makes sense because they're still trying to get people to buy tickets for Shazam: Fury of the Gods. I'm sure they all know that it would be terrible marketing to start admitting how fans don't need to watch that movie because it won't mean anything, because it'll all be wiped away once the DCU starts up properly in 2025. That said, I think we as fans can be pretty sure that the Zachary Levi Shazam franchise is going to be canceled after Fury of the Gods. Then it'll likely be shelved until it fades a bit from the fans' minds. Then it'll be rebooted with a new cast for the DCU. And I think we can be sure of that because of 3 basic but very major problems with the current Shazam franchise that franchise has going against it right now. First, the storyline baggage. The Zachary Levi Shazam movies are simply put too connected to the muddled DCEU to really work in a fresher DCU. The mythology of Shazam and Shazam: Fury of the Gods is heavily tied to the god mythology of the 2 Wonder Woman films, the Justice League movies, both the crappy 2017 one and the 2021 amazing Snyder Cut, and the Black Adam movie. That mythology has gotten self-contradictory and convoluted and all-around confusing, and Shazam: Fury of the Gods really is responsible for much of that. Again, watch my review of that movie, I get into that pretty heavily. So keeping Zachary Levi's Shazam franchise as part of the new DCU would basically mean validating a huge chunk of the DCEU's troubled mythology and all of that baggage as part of the DCU. For one thing, that would mean that the DCU would be seriously constrained in telling stories with its own Wonder Woman or Amazons, not to mention other possible films that James Gunn might eventually want to tell involving other related characters. And James Gunn probably is not going to do that because he's pretty much said repeatedly that they're trying to build a fresher and more cohesive DCU. They're probably not going to want to hold on to all of that baggage, all of that storytelling baggage that would hamper them. Now, I already know what you're probably thinking, and before somebody out there comments about how James Gunn could easily just keep the Zachary Levi Shazam cast for the DCU, but only reboot the Shazam mythology and origin story to better fit the DCU's vision, I'm going to go ahead and get into the second major problem and the reason for why that probably is not going to happen. Second, the age of the Zachary Levi Shazam cast. In plain English, the current Shazam cast members are just too old to effectively play rebooted versions of their own characters in the DCU. James Gunn has said that his plans to get the DCU off the ground will require about 10 years just to start for Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters. He's also said or implied that casting choices for DCU films and shows are going to be geared generally towards actors and actresses who can believably play their roles for at least that long, if not longer. Asher Angel, who plays Billy Batson in the Shazam films, is 20 right now. Zachary Levi, who plays Captain Marvel, Shazam, whichever, is 42. The people who play the Shazam siblings are in their mid to late teens, up to their late 20s. The people who play them as adult superhero avatars of Shazam are in their 30s or 40s. And that's just right now. The DCU isn't even going to officially begin until 2025's Superman Legacy. There's just no way that the current Shazam cast members will be able to believably and consistently portray kids, teenagers, or immortally youthful Shazam avatars for nearly 10 years starting after 2025, because that's the earliest they would be able to work in the DCU. Honestly, the age on some of the kids and even Zachary Levi's Shazam was starting to show in Fury of the Gods. With Zachary Levi in particular, I feel like I noticed more of the lines on his face and a smidge of hair loss also as compared to the first movie, the first Shazam. Don't get me wrong, he still looks good and he jokes around like a youthful immortal and moves around like a youthful immortal, but he's starting to lose the look. Just imagine how old these people are going to appear by the time James Gunn would need them for the DCU if he chose to use them down the road again. Besides which, and this kind of ties back into my earlier point about storyline baggage, using the same Shazam cast for a rebooted and refocused DCU would just come with too many issues of fan confusion and expectations. It's like if Henry Cavill had been used as James Gunn's Superman after being Zack Snyder's Superman. Even seeing these people's faces on screen in the DCU would confuse fans about which universe they were watching, the DCU or the DCEU. Not to mention, it would keep reopening the wound with fans and reminding them that the Snyderverse has been replaced with James Gunn's DCU vision, which would lead to endless comparisons that would hurt the DCU brand really in the end. Enough said. Okay, third and final problem, box office and critical failure. Just to say this, these Shazam movies have not been either the most critically beloved or financially successful films in the DCEU. In fact, financially speaking, they've been some of the lowest earning films. The first movie wasn't universally loved, but was met with general critical acclaim and did earn more than $367 million at the box office against a $90 to $100 million budget. That's not exactly Christmas for superhero movies, but it was enough to justify a sequel. Shazam! Fury of the Gods, however, is not as critically beloved as the first movie and is currently bombing at the box office. Many analysts think it might not even break $300 million. And that's against a higher budget of between $100 and $110 and $125 million. That is not a solid return on investment, and it does not justify future films in the franchise. Yes, I get that Shazam Fury of the Gods' poor performance was partially due to poor marketing because of Warner Brothers' dire financial straits and other behind-the-scenes drama that plagued the movie's production, but still, businessmen look at numbers at the close of the day. Businessmen are going to be the ones deciding whether more Zachary Levi Shazam movies are made. Businessmen only care about numbers at the close of the day. And the numbers simply are not in favor of saying yes to making more Zachary Levi Shazam movies. All of those reasons, story baggage, cast age, critical/financial underperformance, make a very compelling case for why it's a sound business and creative storytelling decision for the new DCU to just cut bait and rid itself of Zachary Levi's Shazam franchise by waiting a few years until it's not that fresh on fans' minds, then rebooting it with a new cast and starting over with a story that'll better fit the DCU. Peter Safran is the DCU's businessman, James Gunn is the DCU's creative mastermind, and they both probably know everything I'm saying right now. They both probably knew it before I was aware of it. So I have to assume that they've done the same math that I just broke down. So yeah, for my money, Zachary Levi's Shazam franchise and cast are probably toast, no matter what Zachary or James Gunn or anyone else is saying right now. Really, like I said earlier, I wouldn't expect James or Zachary or any of those other people to confirm what I'm saying now before Shazam Fury of the Gods has officially left theaters, and probably not even immediately after that either. Of course, when they eventually do confirm it, I hope you'll remember that you heard it from me first. At any rate, let me know what you all think. How likely do you believe that it is that James Gunn and Peter Safran will cut their losses and replace the cast of the Zachary Levi Shazam films for a rebooted Shazam franchise down the line in the DCU? Sound off in the comments below. If you like this video, don't forget to leave a like, click subscribe, and please ring that bell. So long.